Welcome, everyone, to today's show. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. I'm sure you've already seen the title of today's episode, so you know this is going to be an important conversation. I want to just do a quick disclaimer and say that, of course, my intentions are love, hope, peace, healing, transformation, and moving in the direction of what it is that we all want, which is more peace, love, connection, understanding, compassion, and understanding. If at any point in today's show that does not translate, I apologize in advance. If at all things come up for you, again, I am not meaning to trigger any wounds that are already there. I'm really just trying to step into the conversation as consciously and as respectfully as I can. I was looking on Facebook on Sunday morning after I had invited all of my groups to join me at Agape Live with Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, who I have asked to be on the show, and his team has responded. It hasn't been scheduled yet. But knowing that it wasn't something I could speak to when people were asking for help and what to do in a way that I felt served them, I directed everybody to Agape. And as I was getting ready to meditate at the beginning of the service, I saw a Facebook post from a woman who I had met a couple years ago and gave a very powerful pitch to be on the podcast. And I loved her, but I didn't have a space at that time or a topic that I wanted to talk about. So when I saw her take her power and use it for good, meaning to say she didn't feel oppressed and that she didn't want to be labeled as oppressed, and that her experience of being a Black woman was very different than some of the other narratives she was hearing, I reached out to her and I asked her to be on the show. And I asked her so that she could use her voice to help empower those to make a new choice. I'm not saying that anyone's made a wrong choice. I'm just saying that in the direction of where we're going, to remind us all from her perspective and her position, how we can claim our lives and make our decisions and create our own experience. Nyajé is a coach, podcast host, and sound therapy practitioner dedicated to helping people live abundant lives. She helps thought leaders and trailblazers gain the confidence to stand in their truth and empower their sovereignty. Believer in the law of attraction and energy, she is diligently helping people to raise their vibration and heal as a collective. Welcome to the show, everyone. For those of you that are watching this on video, we did do an audio version of this as well that might have some more information, a little bit more background on Nyajé Wallace, who she's going to tell us about herself right now, just to make sure I get it in this video. And so those of you watching on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you may be watching this, that you're going to not miss out on the story about why we're having this conversation from a what is my background perspective. For those of you that don't know me, I'm JJ Flazanes. I have many shows. And in the corner here, we're branding and representing spirit, purpose, and energy. And the reason why we are doing that today, and the reason why I chose to, because the Fit to Love banner's over here, the reason why I'm choosing to lead with spirit, purpose, and energy is because I want to set the tone and the attraction level for those of you who are actually looking for more love-based, spiritually empowerment answers. If it's not your cup of tea, you can move on. Obviously, what we're going to be talking about today is a pretty important topic. We're going to talk about racism and law of attraction. And it's a very scary topic in a way for me. I'm guessing for Nyajé too, because of your Facebook Live yesterday. You know, you were shaking, and I have felt that often with the last couple of shows that I've done. So I just want to make sure people know that we understand the delicacy of what's going on. We understand that this is the disclaimers I want to give is that I am going to do my best to speak from only an I perspective of what I've experienced, what I think, what I've lived, what I see, what I interpret, what I think based on what I see. But I by no means represent every white person or every woman or every human. I don't know how I could. And so coming into this, the reason why I've never had this conversation with any of you really, and I've been quiet for so long, is because I've always felt like I couldn't have this conversation. I would be discredited. Well, you're white. You have no idea. So why bother speaking if no one's listening? Why bother having this conversation if it's not going to make an impact on someone other than listening to the pain on the other side of what's going on for everybody else? But my role up until now is just to be a witness, not to be an educator, not to be an empowerment specialist, which is what I try to do on the show. My show is obviously human-based. It has nothing to do with color, size, shape, race, gender, or sexual orientation. None of it. It's about people. And I just want to make sure you know that if you don't know who I am, if you're watching this on a platform where you're not familiar with who I am, that I'm going to come from the deepest, most centered place of love and belief that we all have the power to change our lives individually. And that has always been my goal, is to how to empower people. And while I may not know exactly how to live in your shoes, you don't know how to live in my shoes. And I think it's all relative when we come down to the pain. And I will cry in today's show because I've already had this conversation with one of my mastermind members, and she's a friend and someone who I care about very deeply. And I cried the entire time because she's Black and she's having fear right now, and she's reacting in a way that is right for her in this moment. And so I don't want to discredit or shame, have everyone think that we're going to shame you in any way. So without further ado, the reason why we're having this conversation is because as I was feeling the pain of society, and at the same time, always checking in with my intuition about when is it the right time to say something? When is it the time to say anything? Is it okay to say something? Will anybody listen? Will your voice make any difference? I saw Najee's post on her Facebook page yesterday. We are recording this on Monday, June 1st. And as we all have been experiencing the tragedies that have been going on in the world, not just today, but for a long time, the position of when someone's in that much amount of pain, they just want to be heard, seen and heard. And I also have tried to move people towards a solution from my vantage point of what I've studied with law of attraction and what I know to be true about frequency and vibration in law of attraction. What I know to be true about, you have to, in order to have transformation, in order to have a breakthrough, you have to have a breakdown. But too often when we're in breakdown, we then repeat the same patterns that got us to break down, and we don't leverage that energy to move to a new place. It's an asking of a new consciousness. And so when I saw Najee go on her Facebook Live and write about law of attraction and talk about not feeling all the same feelings that people were having personally in her life experience, I thought, oh, okay. Oh, yeah, someone's talking at that level, someone who you might listen to. Someone who isn't white and a woman and has privilege or is judged for that situation. And so I watched her Facebook Live. I saw the amount of love that you had. I also know that you got a lot of feedback from it, and we're going to talk about that. But before we get to that, I just want to introduce her. Najee, thank you so much my intuition was screaming. I was watching Agape. I was trying to get everybody. I'm like, what can I do? What can I do? Well, I can have them come to Agape so that they can watch Reverend Michael, because he's Black and he's a man and he's in his 50s and he's lived his life, and he's going to come from this same position of deal with your anger in this way, but be over here about the change. Because again, I've never felt like I can say that because I feel like I'll get discredited. Like, oh, you're spiritual bypassing. You're a woo-woo. You're a woman. You're white. You've no clue what I go through. So let's start with introducing yourself, and then we're going to get to Facebook post.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. My name's Najee. I am a coach and a sound therapy practitioner, and I have a podcast that is named Abundance Hack, and my purpose is to share tips and healing modalities to help people live abundant lives. And I am someone that practices what I preach, and I spend a lot of time helping people shift their mindset because I've seen it happen in my own life. And I come from the hood, a single Black mom. All of the things that could have broken me is the stepping stones that I have planted to get to where I am today, living a fulfilling, abundant life. I think my life is abundant and amazing. So yeah, and being able to come from where I came from and not graduating college and still being able to rise above every single challenge that people have tried to place in front of me. That's why I felt I could speak out about what is going on. And it wasn't necessarily about what happened. It's about the aftermath of people saying that Black people are oppressed. And that is what bothered me. So not saying what happened didn't bother me, but specifically my video was about people feeling like Black people are oppressed. So I sat and I meditated and I'm like, okay, do I even want to touch on this? Because I was fearful of the backlash that I would receive from Black people. And my family does not agree with my message. So I was shaking and I was like, do I really want to do this? But I'm a coach, and I'm releasing a program that is asking people to have social courage. And social courage is standing in your truth, speaking your truth, even at the risk of rejection or disapproval. And that is what I did yesterday. And it was what, as humans, we have such a wide range of emotions. And on one hand, I'm like, yes, I am proud of myself. When I have a child, I want her to know that I stood up and I didn't take this, I don't even know the word, it's mind control. It's mind control. When people are in a state of fear, they're easily controlled. And I wanted to stand up and say, I understand what's going on is bad. I understand what's going on is unacceptable, but do not let society tell you that you are oppressed. That is a mindset right now. And there were a lot of hateful responses to that. But what I realize is people that are subconsciously not ready to get out of that oppression are going to stay in it. And people that are ready to be empowered found my message empowering. And I was glad that I stood in my truth. And if I'm asking my clients and my listeners to my podcast to stand in their truth, I have to be willing to stand in my truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And yesterday was extremely uncomfortable. I know there's a lot of people in pain, and I touched on that. So what I feel is that with the pandemic, everyone's in a state of fear, and fear is a low vibration. Low vibrations, fear is easily controlled, and it turns into anger because of an unfortunate situation. And these are low vibrations. And I know that some people took that offensively, like I'm saying these people are low vibrations in a demeaning or disrespectful way, but I simply was referring to energy. So if you look at David Hawkins' map of consciousness, he has a list of our different energetic vibrations, and fear and guilt and anger are low vibrations. And I believe that those are the places where illness and physical ailments are caused. So my purpose of this was to say, I am not oppressed. Black people are not oppressed. We have more opportunity than ever. And you have every right to be angry, but let's try to focus on whatever healing modality or whatever practice we have in our lives to raise the vibration to love, because that's going to fix it. The violence, the looting, that is not going to fix it, you know? And like news and different publications can twist things to manipulate people into believing that they're oppressed. And then for white individuals, that they're guilty if they like the guilt, like they are. There was a lot of posts saying you're on the side of the oppressor or on the side of the racist if you don't speak up. So they're guilting people into speaking up. Me personally, I'm like, I don't want someone to speak up out of guilt. I want someone to speak out of love. So if you're doing it because you feel guilty, don't do it, because it's not helping. It's not helping. If you want to help, here's a list of how you can do that. You can support a Black child to go to college. You can support a Black business, buy a book from a Black author. You can give a Black person an opportunity to do something that they consider white privilege. Send them to a country club, pay for a golf membership so they can experience things that they claim we don't experience because we're oppressed. So that was my message. And while I think it's extremely empowering, I received a lot of backlash, and I received people saying I'm an embarrassment to Black people. I received people saying that I'm pandering, which I've never heard this term before, but pandering for white people, and that I'm sad. And that was hurtful, but I will also say I received a lot of support, a lot of people saying I'm a role model, a lot of people saying I'm an inspiration, because I stood in my truth, and it's my truth. It's okay for people to share their truth when it validates the belief that is holding us down. But when I stand in my truth and I say, I'm not allowing this belief to hold me down, and it shouldn't hold you down either, that shouldn't be offensive to people.
I think it's and I'm going to, again, do my best to speak from an I position and to look at, because I have studied human behavior for 35 years. Okay. And that's why I asked you today, I asked if I could do her chart. right? Because everything comes back to there's so many levels of how we interpret things in life and what our current wounds are coming into the situation. And I think what happens with the conversation of racism, which is why it's so dangerous on so many levels, is that it is so many levels. It isn't just one thing. It's and we're trying to lump everything into one problem, and it's a myriad of problems, right? It's a myriad of problems of individual healing and things that I have some friends, one in particular person who has had a lot of unfortunate things in her life, third born child or fourth born child, brothers were drug addicts and not well, and father died young, and disability, and just very frustrating life circumstances, and always feeling oppressed, always feeling, and white mother, black father that had died, and a lot of anger, and understandably. But I also always felt like this person used the race card, if you will, to be the scapegoat of all of her pain. But it wasn't about the bigger level of racism. It was about all the other little injustices in her life that then got lumped into something that I can just sweep over and say, well, this is what the problem is generally, and I get to focus my anger there. But it like supercharges this other problem that isn't ever going to be fixed by having it be this huge something we can't even start to fix on that kind of level, because we're giving our power away, everybody, to an idea. And an idea you're not going to change everybody's ideas. And then for the rest of our lifetime on this planet, we are all never going to share the same idea or the same interpretation or the same belief system. So how do we dial it back down? And one of the strongest teachings that I have been using in the work that I'm doing as well on my show, and the work that I'm going to continue doing, comes from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication. And I don't know if you've heard of nonviolent communication, but Dr. Rosenberg literally started nonviolent communication during the riots, when he was like, why do people kill each other? What moves us so much? And how do we get to the place of, again, bringing it down to the root of someone's feelings, someone's like an individual's experience in any situation, and a communication, an empathy, a structure to handle it, so that we have clear communication, so we understand what our needs are. We understand how we individually interpret things. So we're not assuming when someone else doesn't do something. I'm glad you brought up, and you did mention this is another reason why I was attracted to what you said about, when white people don't say something, okay, or whoever doesn't say something, right? And I haven't been saying anything. I haven't been saying anything because I don't know what to say. Because again, what I want to say, I've assumed many people don't want to hear, because they're going to discredit me right off the gate and say, you don't know what I'm going through. And I can say, right, I've never been in your shoes, but I believe that human emotion is human emotion, and we all have needs. We all have needs that aren't being met, and we all feel fear. So I'm trying to find the ways in which we connect, the ways in which we're the same, the ways in which I can understand some level of what's going on, so that I can be of service to help you feel better and take your power back, where I see where people, and it's everybody, by the way, this isn't a racism conversation. This is a little everybody, right? Giving your power away to say that I can't feel better until everybody else changes. That's a losing proposition every time. Now, does it mean that things don't need to be fixed? It doesn't mean that we as a society don't need to have another conversation. But in the law of attraction terms, and I want to go into when you first started to understand how you got introduced to law of attraction, even your backstory. I know you mentioned like being raised in the hood, single parent, because like you said, those would be all reasons why you should have these pains. But we'll go into your story in a second in law of attraction. But when it comes down to any contrast, and again, this is a law of attraction term, and I do this blanket statement. And again, those of you that don't want to hear this or don't think it has any purpose in your life right now because you can't hear it, I get that. And I am not trying to change anyone who wants to stand in a place of anger and blame, who is not interested in feeling better right now because they want things to change and they won't. Okay. You had posted in response to these negative posts that you had posted a TED Talk from Ashley Kirkwood. And I watched it this morning before you and I had this conversation, and she had had some research, and so, and it wasn't that she did it differently than you did. She was coming from, I'm going to do a big presentation, and you were being moved to want to empower people and to let them know that I don't agree with what you're saying. So don't lump me into the box of being an angry person who feels oppressed, because I don't. You didn't tell anybody what to do. You didn't say you shouldn't feel this way. You said, I don't feel oppressed. And it's an individual interpretation per situation. And how else can we fix something if we don't start within ourselves? It's, Nelson Mandela said, be the change you want to see. This is not a topic. This is not just a nice thing to say. Like, it's a real thing. But you know how hard it is to be the change? It takes work, people. You actually have to look at yourself in the mirror and admit your wounds. Look at what doesn't work for you. Okay, back to the people not posting. We have love languages, and not everybody interprets the things the same way. I see some people who are posting, like you said, out of shame, and you're not receiving that because you're going to call bullshit on that. Or someone who that doesn't even mean anything to them. So a white person can post something about, supporting Black people. Well, that doesn't move the needle. So it's a very tough ground for me, because that's all I can speak to, for me to say, what's the right thing? What can I do? And this is what I'm doing. I'm using the platform that I've built to bring you on I'm going to reach out to Ashley and see if she wants to come on, to at least start to say, I see you. I acknowledge you. I am sorry. I did not create this. I can't fix it alone, but I can try to empower people and to give you the tools to empower yourself, that under any circumstance, you can feel good and as best as you can, and at least move out of the dark places that you've been, that were contributed by so much more than just society. Like I said, fathers, mothers, misabuse in relationships, fears and pains that you have growing up that have nothing to do with necessarily skin color, just relationships in general. And so I want to try to bring this down into a conversation that, again, we can start having more lovingly, less blamingly, and that doesn't mean we don't take responsibility for things that are happening. If I would have seen what had happened, I wouldn't have stood there and looked at it. I would have taken a freaking baseball bat and knocked the guy in the head, but I wasn't there. Okay, so should I be blamed for or made to feel guilty that I didn't do something in that moment? Again, that's why this conversation of racism has to come back into healing each other, healing ourselves, seeing each other. How are we feeling? Listening. So I'm going to shut up now. And I want to go back to your introduction, usage, application, embodiment of law of attraction. Because I'll tell you, I think a lot of people, again, my opinion, maybe it's a wrong opinion. My assumption is that I think a lot of people just will say, yeah, that's spiritual bypass, and you don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know what I feel, so I'm not even going to do that. That's BS. So tell me, please, tell us your story.
So one thing I want to touch on is how people are feeling. There's nothing that anyone can say that's going to change how people feel. They have to choose to feel differently. And I know you listen to Abraham Hicks, and one of the most powerful things I've heard her say recently is ask yourself, is this perspective serving me? Is this perspective serving me? And that is one of the things with the whole I am not oppressed. If I choose to say, oh my God, Black people are oppressed, and I ask myself, is this perspective serving me? The answer is, I was going to curse. I was going to say hell
curse. No. I don't know what YouTube's going to do, but my podcast is fine. You can curse.
No, and the answer to that is hell no. I am not oppressed. I've lived an amazing life because I've chosen to live an amazing life. And another thing Abraham Hicks says is the happier you are, or the more grateful you are in this segment, the better the next segment is going to be. Segment intending. And that is what I've done my life. So my mom, single mom, moved around a lot. In 12 years of grade school, I went to 11 different schools. I didn't have a father in my life. She married someone else. And it was a lot of moving around and a lot of chaos and a lot of instability. And I used to feel bad about that. And I used to blame a lot of my problems on that. And then when you get in your adult life, there's a point where you have to take responsibility. Like as a child, okay. As a teen, okay. As a young adult, maybe. But there's a point where you have to stop blaming your childhood and heal and move past it. And some people don't like to hear that. And here's the thing. In my coaching, I had to figure out discernment and like when to push, when to pull. And I tiptoed around a lot of issues, but it's the issues that I've tiptoed around that I needed to be direct with, which is what I did yesterday. If you are ready to be empowered, you have to heal. You have to, and the funny thing is I spoke to my mom about my video, and she tried to remind me of all these reasons why I should feel oppressed and why I should feel bad and why I should feel angry. And she brought up my great grandmother. She said, you know, a white man threatened to hang grandma. And I'm like, okay, you know, that was 50 years ago. It's unfortunate that it happens. And the best thing that I can do to honor my grandmother is to thrive, to live an amazing life, to be successful, to travel and do things that she was never able to do. That is the best way I can honor my grandmother, the best way. So rather than me being angry and harboring hate for white people, like, my brain does not wrap around that. And if that makes me an embarrassment to Black people, I'm willing to accept that and respect anyone's perspective. But the best thing, in my opinion, that I can do to honor my ancestors and to break the generational patterns is to thrive, is to be successful, is to travel the world, is to experience things that they were never able to experience, because the generations to come are going to benefit from that. We are breaking generational patterns and paving the way for the generations to come. And we're undoing all of the, I shouldn't say undoing, but we're healing the past trauma. And if you believe in spirits and past lives and all that stuff, like, I believe that my grandmothers are looking down on me proud of what I've become, despite the cards that I've been dealt. So to me standing up and saying, I am not oppressed, you were not oppressed. We just had a Black president. Regardless if you agree with what he did in office, we had a Black president. That means we have endless possibilities right now. We have endless possibilities. He was one of the most powerful men in the moment. And so how could you still feel oppressed? Do we have issues with cops? Of course, but it's not just cops killing Black people. It's all kinds of things, like, you know, human trafficking and drugs and all that type of stuff, money laundering. There are so many issues that have to be dealt with, so many issues. So to me, I feel like what happened was unfortunate, but don't spread the message that Black people are oppressed. I, as a Black woman, will not accept that. It doesn't resonate with me because I am not oppressed, and I don't feel any other Black person should feel oppressed, because we have the ability to heal, because we have some stuff we have to heal from. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, even 50 years ago, things were different. But now, today, we have the ability to look forward, be successful, do the things that they consider white privilege, and be better for our ancestors, you know, like, and I think you wanted me to get into, like,
when you found out, like, law of attraction, how did you come upon law of attraction? Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like I was kind of sent here, and I've actually been told this by energy readers, healers, and stuff, that I was sent here with messages. Like, some people learn messages along their lifetime. I was sent here with messages. So I am a little different, I will say that. But as far as specific law of attraction, the first thing, the Secret was introduced to me whenever that came out. So that was a really long time ago. And I'm like,
2006, 2007.
Yeah. So I feel like I was positive even before then. I saw, like, okay, see people on TV with this life, and then I see my life. And I was, like, smart enough in that moment to be like, okay, do I listen to the people that I'm around that's living like this? Or do I look on TV and see, like, Oprah or, like, someone successful and what they're saying and adapt what they're, like, their mindset? And that's kind of how I started, where I was just like, this doesn't sound right to me. But I had enough courage to be like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so, and maybe stubbornness, maybe it was stubbornness at the time. And then when I graduated high school, and I shared this in the video yesterday, I did not graduate college. I wanted to go to college. I got accepted to Georgia State University, but I couldn't get my financial aid done for whatever reason. So rather than me feeling defeated and oppressed, I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the Small Business Administration, and an opportunity that's available for everyone. I got a free business mentor. I got my first business loan at 18 years old. I took every single class I could from them, and I started my first business at 19. There are possibilities out here for us to change our lives that are at our fingertips. We have to choose it. We have to choose it. And so many people are not choosing it. They're choosing to stay in anger. They're choosing to feel defeated. They're choosing to lick their wounds and cry, woe is me. And I know people are not going to like to hear that. I know that. But there are opportunities out here for us to change our lives. And people who have Black sons, there are ways that you can move into better neighborhoods. There's ways that you can go to better schools. There's so many possibilities out here for us if we choose them. And that was hard for me to stand up and say. And
I'm sure, because it's not the narrative. It's not the collective. They want your support to validate and to be seen and to be heard. I think that the part of again, going back to the feelings conversation of where I think how everybody interprets differently. So I want to quickly run through for those of you that are new to me or just hearing this for the first time because of the topic of conversation. When we react with a feeling, it's because we've observed something or we've thought of something or we've seen something that we interpret, and we interpret through our belief systems. We interpret through the messages and what we think is important. We interpret through many different filters. Love languages, how we experience love and receive love, astrology. So, oh my gosh, I have an astrology course. It's because it's to create compassion about why people don't think like you, why they don't react the way that you react. First, your birth order, if you were an only child versus you were a firstborn or second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth born child, right? Your culture, your religion. These are all points of view that you carry that when something happens, that's why 10 different people react differently. It's because they've interpreted it differently. It means different things to them. And when we do this big general sweep of an issue, I feel like there's misunderstanding all over the place about how someone isn't doing something and that equals blank. And again, on a personal one-to-one basis, that's not true. And it's led me to be frozen because I'm like, I don't even know what to do because I can't do one thing that everyone's going to interpret in the same way or say something other than do what we're doing right now, which is to start having the conversation. So I think because I know of some people that have a negative response to this conversation already, that I think I don't feel seen and heard, or I feel like you're redirecting the issue and you're not just honoring, you're not noticing or saying something about my pain. So I just want to address, that's why, again, astrologically, and I'm actually surprised because you have your moon's in Cancer, which would mean that you're very sensitive.
Can I say something? So I did see a lot of comments about the fact that I'm not compassionate and where's my empathy? So I'm extremely compassionate and empathetic, and all of my energy is dedicated to helping people shift their mindsets and to help them heal from pain. My podcast, that is what it's about. My sound therapy, for the whole quarantine, I did 3 sound therapy sessions for free a week for the whole quarantine. So I'm in the arena. I'm showing up. I'm helping people heal. So what I won't do, and people can hate me for this, is enable. I won't enable. And my video was not about what happens to the gentleman that got murdered. It wasn't about that. It was about the aftermath of society having this message that Black people are oppressed. I want to be very specific about that. I did say anyone who's experienced racism or has lost a child or whatever to racism, my heart goes out to you. My video was specifically referencing the mindset, the societal message that Black people are oppressed. So I'm not skipping over what happens. There's enough people talking about it, enough people creating space for people to share their pain. That wasn't what I was referring to. And the people who did share, I made sure I said, thank you for sharing. Even if they didn't agree with what I said, I deleted some rude comments, but people who didn't agree but said it in a respectful way, I said, thank you for sharing, because it should be a safe space for us to share what we are experiencing, no matter what our situation is. Everyone has different views. And I said, let's talk about it in a respectful way. And everyone who did, the first thing I said is thank you for sharing, because I know that I have a direct approach, and I know that sometimes it can come off Like I don't have compassion, but I do. And I'm working on my communication to make sure people do feel heard by me. And I still will not enable in a sense of like, I have been getting clear of like who my audience is. And I've realized that I am not for everyone. I'm not
honey,
for
I know.
everyone.
I'm not either. I'm not either.
So I've had to accept that. And it was a hard pill for me to swallow. I went and cried for like an hour after that video. I did, because I know my own family doesn't agree with what I'm saying. But I made the choice to not focus on lack, to not focus on scarcity, to not focus on the negative pre-programming. I made a choice to heal from that. And I'm sharing with people on my podcast how I did it and how they can do it too. And to me, that's not a lack of compassion. That's not a lack of empathy. And I bring people on my show and allow them to share their stories, their journeys, and how they overcame the things that they've experienced. That's not a lack of compassion or empathy.
Right. Again, we're getting to interpretation and again, and frequency, right? So someone's in a really low frequency. They're really angry. They're stuck in their story. They don't see, they're so afraid. They see no hope. They're so angry. They don't know what to do. They're completely out of alignment. That person is not going to hear your message, and they're not going to feel your feelings because you're on completely different frequencies. And this is where addressing something so big like this has so many levels of interpretation and fear in terms of receiving, and who are people going, what are they going to think, and how are they going to respond, and where do they fall? And no one's ever going to agree on every level about any of this. And I still think that, when we look at something like what you and I are both doing in the world, how I use law of attraction, because a lot of the people who listen to my show have asked me for sort of guidance and support. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to be productive. And I keep trying to, I want them to feel their pain. I want them to feel their feelings and not stuff them, because if they stuff them, they won't also be healthy, right? But then to utilize this and utilize this and pivot. So some law of attraction terms I talked about in last week's show, which was how to feel better right now. And I would recommend that anyone who is interested in listening to that, go back and listen to that episode, How to Feel Better Right Now, because it applies to everybody all the time. So Reverend Michael yesterday at Agape Service talked about the 3 different kinds of people that are happening right now. And there's the ones that are awake. And I would say that we're in that group, and those that listen to you and those that listen to me and those that are attracted to our messages would be people who are more awake, who are more conscious. They know what's going on. They see the problems. It's not the same in the scope of the history of it, but it's the same as that I stepped out a couple weeks ago with my podcast with Dr. Christian Northrup about what's going on in the world with the pandemic. I am of the least popular belief. I am of what I believe to be completely true, but the rest of the world doesn't know it. So how do you communicate what truth is to people who aren't willing to hear it, who don't know the backstory, who have the utmost trust in their government, in medicine, in the pharmaceutical companies, and in the media? Well, they wouldn't put it on the news if it wasn't true, right? Like that. So it's like, oh my gosh, I stepped out and was like this and kind of hiding behind Dr. Northrup, because I was like, let her say it, because she's a doctor. She's been through this. She understands it all. She can come at it from a much more stronger position than I can. Do I know some of the same things? I do. But I'm afraid of being discredited because I'm not a doctor, but she is. So I have, and also being afraid of offending other people and having them think that means that I don't support them. I had, with the whole mask conversation, one of my members said to me, well, I like wearing a mask. And I said, and I support you wearing a mask. I support you doing whatever you feel is right for you. I 100% want you to be in alignment with who you are and what feels best, and take that action. Just everyone, leave me the F alone. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what's best for my body. I know. I'm the only one that knows what is best for me. No one else knows what is best for me. You may have information that I can consider and digest and resonate with or not resonate with. And that's what I try to teach people, is how to take this information and see what's right for you and make the decisions based on what's right for you. And so in this situation, how I have positioned it, and I want to hear your feedback because I know you listened to it, and it's what Reverend Michael talked about, was, we have all this energy, like things are being uncovered. Everyone thinks like this is bad. And again, you can't have a breakthrough until you have a breakdown. We're in breakdown. We now are all aware. But we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to make a difference. And I believe how we make that difference is to start having these better conversations, to start focusing forward on what it is we want, on talking about how great it will be when, feeling about how great it will be when I get to do this and when this happens, and getting to that level where we are creating the solution and the change and not just muddied in the waters of the low vibrating contrast, which was necessary, but it isn't where change happens. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I agree. And I know you mentioned like the big leap in talking about upper limits, and just, I mean, there's so much to say. There's so much to say about all of it. And I do think that we're going through a collective healing, and the pandemic, like, we literally have had every single fear brought to the surface in the last few months. And the good thing about that is it is an opportunity to heal. But if you think about the pandemic, people lost their jobs. So fear of money. People were fearful of their health. People were fearful of their safety now with the whole racism thing. And it literally has brought every fear that we've had to the surface. If people were going through marital problems or connection with their kids, being homeschooled, being home with your partner, it's brought everything to surface. And we can play victim. I shouldn't say play victim because that sounds bad. Now I'm trying to like watch because it makes it
right. And I understand, because again, I'm like you in that I don't want to enable the limiting beliefs. I don't want to enable the blame game. I don't want to enable the things that, while it doesn't mean I don't see you, hear you, and want you to be heard, and I want you to express your emotions, and I want you to stand in your truth. But if you want to feel better, that is not the place ever that will feel better. When you feel a victim all of the time, you won't feel better. It's just because you give your power away.
Yeah. And if the feeling comes up, lean in and dissect it. And that's what I did. Like, I had tons of fear when the pandemic happened. I was like, oh my God, what is going on in the world? But I said, okay, what am I worried about? What can I do about it? And that's what I did. And there were a couple of days where I sat and I ate ice cream and cookie brownies because I was like, life, what is going on? But I gave myself that moment to feel the feelings because I don't believe in spiritual bypassing. And then I wrote out a list of what I could do within my power. There's things I can't change, and I choose not to worry about things that I can't change. But what's in my power, that's what I did. One of the things was glitter my wall because it made me feel good. So just doing things to pull yourself out of that funk. And one thing that I love that Abraham says, because there is a lot of spiritual bypassing that goes on, but rather than trying to feel good immediately, start with feeling neutral. Start with feeling neutral. I'm not saying feel good about anything that's going on right now, but at least get yourself to a place of neutrality of like, okay, I'm going to be okay. Everything's working out for my greatest good. I don't see it, but I'm going to step out on faith. And yeah, I may be eating cookie brownies and drinking wine, and I want to stay in my pajamas all day, but let me at least get up and take a shower. Let me at least get up and brush my hair. We have to start somewhere. But if you want to stay in that place of negativity, that's something that I choose not to support. And it's not because I don't hear you, see you, and feel you. There's some people that need an extra boost, and there's people out there that are for those types of people. And this is one of the most powerful things that I've learned during the quarantine. I am not for everyone. And I have been studying adult attachment styles. I have been studying emotional intelligence to understand we do process differently. We do communicate differently. And The 5 Love Languages, one of my favorite books, always recommended, the 4 Agreements, and all these things that teach us how different we are and how to understand if someone lashes out at you, don't take it personal. I did a Ho'oponopono yesterday. Like, are you familiar with Ho'oponopono?
Yeah, I did it this morning. Like, the alarm went off and I said, Alexa, put 5 minutes on the timer. Did it for 5 minutes. Alarm went off. Alexa, put 5 minutes on the timer. Did it for another 5 minutes. I'm like, I was doing it last night. Yes, yeah. I know Ho'oponopono. I've done 2 shows on Ho'oponopono.
Yeah. So I I did a sound therapy session last night, Facebook Live, heart chakra, root chakra, because we do deserve to be here. We do deserve to take up space. We do deserve to heal from our wounds and pave the way for generations to come. So to me, I'm like, okay, I know I said some things that offended people, but I take responsibility for that. It's not that I don't hear you. I do hear you. And what I want is to see you thrive. And I'm not apologizing for that. I want to see Black people thrive and succeed and do amazing things. And they are doing amazing things. So don't forget that. Michelle Obama blew me away. If you haven't seen Becoming, the Netflix special, blew me away. And there was a little girl that asked her, how do you deal with being a Black woman and feeling oppressed when you're trying to do these amazing things in the world? And me being the New Yorker, I was like, she is not oppressed. And I like in my head, like as I'm watching it, and Michelle said, first thing, I've never felt oppressed. And I'm like, yes, Michelle. Because like, and we need to hear that. We need to hear that, because I believe in subconscious blocks. And the more society tells us we are oppressed, the more we are going to feel oppressed, and the less we're going to go for in our lives. So that was my message yesterday. It wasn't to say, you know, what's happening isn't bad. It wasn't to say you're wrong for being angry. It wasn't to say that. Like, be angry. Just don't stay there. Don't stay there. And when you are ready to come out, know that you're not oppressed, and know that you control your reality, and you have more opportunity right now than you've ever had. It's a really amazing time to be alive, because we can heal, and we have these beautiful healing modalities to help us heal, so the generations to come are so much better off.
We do Agape Live. We used to go when we could. And now we've been doing it through the quarantine. We've been doing it at home. And, and Reverend Michael had everybody doing like using your anger. It was fun. Like, I'm so deserving. I am a money man. I make so much money. Why am I so attractive? Why am I so successful? So it was hilarious.
I love it.
And so we, because he was wanting people to channel their anger. He wasn't saying don't be angry, but channel that anger in something that's actually useful to reprogramming your own, right? We have so many healing modalities, like you said, between EMDR and EFT and hypnosis and Ho'oponopono and any kind of energy healings and chakra balancing and foods and, belief systems changing and NLP. I mean, there's so much. And I think that too often I feel like people just go, and it's okay, because there will always be those people who do that. I'm not speaking to those people, and you're not speaking to those people. Mm-hmm. Right. But trying to also just say how to have compassion and how to show up in a way that's of meaning and of purpose. Yeah. I'm a messenger. I'm a communicator. And at the same time, I have a heart that wants to help people not feel badly when they're ready to not feel badly and to take their power back and to say, what can I do? And that's what I kept saying to everybody who was asking me, like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, let your feelings out, come back into who you are, wait for your intuition to help you figure out what you can do. What actually can you do? Because us adding fuel to the fire of anger and then blowing up cars and all the other crap that's been going on. Yes, we hear you. We see you. You're done. We're done. We're all done. But at the same time, please don't make it so I'm nervous to come out of my house because I'm going to be attacked or I'm going to be assaulted or I'm going to die myself. I don't feel that goes in the opposite direction, because now our human, caveman brains want to go into defensiveness. And when we stay there and we don't rise to the consciousness level of where we are now, with the access we have to thoughts, to feelings, to observations, to intuition, to guidance that we didn't even know we had 50 years ago, we can operate from that place of what we all really want, and to take whatever situation is. And while people want to, I feel like you said, you don't want to enable. And I kind of go, yeah, now what? Yes. Now what? Now what do we do with this? Let's focus forward. Let's get excited about where we're going. Let's take this momentum and utilize it for good. And that isn't a bunch of, crap that I'm just saying, and spiritual crap that, it's real, guys. It's real. Law of attraction is real. It's frequency. And when I have Dr. Bruce Lipton on and we talk about quantum physics, you will understand that. And, Dr. Eben Alexander's coming on again tomorrow, and we're going to talk about that again, because I think people just keep needing to hear and understand you have more power than you know. You have more power than you're practicing. You have more power than you've ever experienced before in a positive way to make real change. And it's time to use it. And that is the reason why when I saw your Facebook post, I was like, okay, JJ, it is time. My intuition, I mean, it was during service. It was during meditation. I was pulling myself out of meditation because I was like, I got to make sure I can get her on the show because I've been dragging my feet on what I was going to publish tomorrow on the podcast that was appropriate. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then when you posted that, I was like, that's appropriate. This is the conversation we need to be having. This is the conversation for those that are interested. For those of you that aren't interested and you're watching this on YouTube, I can't delete you, but I would just say before you decide that you want to hate on us, just ask yourself if that's useful. Just because that we know there are people that aren't going to agree with us. So if that makes you feel better, it's okay. Neither one of us will be affected by a negative comment. Neither one of us will slow down our message because of a negative comment, because we have love in our hearts. We see what's possible and we want that for you. And we want that for everybody. And while it may be scary sometimes because, you put yourself in the line of fire through my life lessons, through experiences that I've had to learn in very personal situations, I've gotten to the place of trying to heal myself to be like, and I am Christian, but I'm law of attraction, to be like Jesus in the way of, the forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. Being stoned. Can you stand in a place of love and compassion for others while being stoned by those that don't understand you? Mm. If you can get there, you've got it. Not that I want to be stoned, but, right. Please. But if you do, I will say, forgive them, Father, they don't know what they do. Because I have enough love. I've tried to have enough compassion through my life and healing and lessons of my own to know that that's where I'm coming from. And so if you don't feel me, a lot of you who are listening to this, of course you feel me. That's why you're here. Those of you that are watching this who are on YouTube who've never heard of me before, maybe you can see my eyes watering. Maybe you can hear me sniffling a little bit, whatever. If you don't feel me, I can only try. And I hope that what we're doing today makes a difference. I hope that what we're doing moves the needle of this conversation. I hope that you, and I want to hear what you hope for too, Najee, and then I want to talk about your course. I hope that something resonates on a deeper level that for me, I haven't posted those Black Lives Matter. Why? Because all freaking lives matter. All lives matter. And that doesn't mean that I don't think you're going through something specific. I do. But I love each and every person I can to the best of my ability, that you're able to receive it, that we're able to co-create on a level together, that where we connect and resonate with each other. Because regardless of skin color, race, sexual orientation, if we're in a different frequency where we don't resonate with each other, then we have nothing to offer each other except possibly respect and contrast of what it is we want to make happen in the future. And I still have respect, but it may not be my cup of tea. I may not be your cup of tea. She may not be your cup of tea. We're okay with that. But we're going to keep marching on and hopefully pioneer a new way of thinking and talking about things, and to shine a light on the situation in a different way that gives some people, at least some people, if we can move a percentage of people into this positive space of what it is that's being created right now, and to let go of all the conversations in the past, and to make new conversations, and to make better conversations, and to make new focus, we can really do some good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that one of the best things, like if someone's like, okay, I don't know what to do or what to say, one of the best things you can do is ask, how can I support you? Because that answer is going to be different for everyone. Just ask, how can I support you? And to me, as a Black woman, seeing someone post about anger and all this kind of stuff, it's not helping me. It doesn't make me feel better. But if someone reached out to me and said, with everything that's going on in the world, how can I support you? That's powerful. And it'll also create a thought-provoking question in the person to be like, hey, what do I need right now to feel better? And that's creating inner dialogue that's going to help them heal. So to me, that's the best thing that you can do if you don't know what to do. And if you want to take a step further, supporting Black-owned businesses, supporting struggling families. Like I said, if you're in a position, if you have a business and you can send a Black child to college or teen to college, or pay for them to get extra tutoring or clothes, there's a lot of people that are wearing the same, outfit every single day. That's how we create change, to give people that feel like they're oppressed an opportunity to live a good life. Arguing, looting, and setting things on fire and stuff like that, it's creating more division. And that's what I don't want to see, is the division. I want to see unity. I want to see unity. If society is telling us that we're oppressed, it's only creating more hatred. It's only creating more fear and resentment. I want to see unity. I want to see love. I want to see support. So how can you love the people in your life? If you have Black people in your life, neighbors, friends, family, whatever, how can you love them? How can you support them? How can you bring people together? And one of the things that, like, I go to a lot of networking events, and they've helped me shift my mindset. Pay for a Black individual to go to a networking event, to go to a Tony Robbins event, something that's going to help them step into their power. That's what I want to see. And I ask myself, what can I do to be part of the solution? And the thing that came to me is mentoring for free some young Black women that may want to start businesses. And I think that's probably one of the most look, I'm trying not to get emotional. It's probably one of the most powerful things that I can do. The girl who asked Michelle Obama, how did you handle being oppressed? Being able to say to someone, me personally, I've never felt oppressed, and neither are you, sweetie. That's what I want to do. I want to have that moment to build them up. There's so much in the world trying to tear us down. I want to build them up. And, you know, I am a coach that has paid services, but if I can serve and give back to young women that probably wouldn't be able to afford my services, who have the idea and the talent and the brilliance to be amazing business owners, that's how I want to contribute. That's what I want to do, my part. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about how other ways you can support people and they can support you in terms of this course that you're doing. And so go ahead and tell everybody what you're doing.
Yeah, so I am launching a course called Decadent Academy. I have a lead magnet, I should say. I don't know if that's a term that people are familiar with, but if you want more information, you can download a free video, 6 Steps to a Decadent You. And basically what decadent means to me is just full and rich, and like you in your fullest expression. So you think of a decadent dessert, it's rich, it's full, it's all the things, it gives you all the feels. So you in your fullest expression, because I think that life is constantly trying to tone us down, constantly telling us we're not enough, or we're too much, or we have to be more of this, less of this. And this is something that focuses on social courage, standing in your truth, speaking your truth without the fear, or even with the fear of rejection, like being able to do it anyway, because that's what we need more of. There's so much fear. So being able to have the confidence to stand up and say, you know what? This person may reject me, but it's not a reflection of who I am. That's their stuff, and I like who I am. So it focuses on confidence. It focuses on humility. So making sure that like we're dealing with our ego and loving our inner child, and it focuses on clarity and purpose. So like it's so many good things, but the purpose of it is stepping into your power and your sovereignty. So it's a leadership and self-development program wrapped up in like glittery packaging.
I remember when I met you, I believe it was in February in Tampa at New Media Summit. Mm-hmm. And you had a killer pitch, and everybody clapped and wooed you, and it was amazing. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'll have her on the show. And I was waiting, and I was like, oh, now's the right time. I was like, now's the right time. This is an impactful conversation that we're going to have, right? Because that's where I am. I'm about having those deep and meaningful, move the needle kind of conversations. I'm not a fluff. And even though we all want to support each other, I think when opportunity arises like this to really get people who might not have listened otherwise, or may not have been interested otherwise, to consider something else, to exercise their freedom of choice, to know they have choice, to hear it from a different point of view. I think, again, I couldn't even focus on my meditation yesterday as I was texting you to say, let's do this ASAP. So thank you so much for being flexible and for coming on. And I hope everybody will check out the course. Do they find it at najee.com?
So you can go to niaje.com/decadent to download the 6 Steps to a Decadent You. And that will give you an overview of what the program is about. And even if you don't buy the actual course, the information in that video alone is little golden nuggets that you can take and just start your journey. And I do want to know, before we get off, what you found out about my chart. Because I don't think
no, I didn't. Let's do, is it niaje.com/decadent?
Yes.
Okay, I want to add that. I want to change that banner so people can see. Okay, there we go. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So your signs, because of course I was like, all right, who is she in terms of astrological? Because as I was listening to your video and you're talking about, I've never felt oppressed, I've never felt da da da, and the conversation I was having today with one of my friends who, who was a little triggered by some of that. And again, each individual is carrying a different amount of wounds and baggage that goes along with interpreting things, right? And so part of me was thinking, I wonder what her astrology is. Because sometimes, and this is to say, this is where I come in with compassion and what I do with people when I'm coaching people is to, here's the general sweep of what to do. But I won't deny that it isn't harder for some people because of how you're made up energetically, right? Someone who is a Gemini or an air sign, they've got a lot of air signs and maybe come from an unsafe background with their parents. Maybe somebody was an addict or not there or absence, or there was some kind of, right? That person might be labeled as ADD now because they can't focus. And we're not looking at the trauma that happened. We're not looking at the fact that they're an air sign, which is about thinking and thought. So they're always in their head because that's their safe place to be. And they don't actually come down into their body because they lack earth or they lack water. And of course, in coming from a non-safe environment, they never feel safe. So they stay in this space, but then we want to categorize them as ADD. So I look at all of those things. So I did your chart and you knew that your sun was in Capricorn, and Capricorn is it's an earth sign. It's the most evolved earth sign and usually very driven and very focused on success. So that definitely, right. Usually very hardworking and very dedicated. Okay. Those are all really great attributes. Your moon's in Cancer, which is also so interesting for you because of Cancer. Cancer is a water sign. It's the first sign and it's the least developed water sign. And Cancers often take a victim position. So do Capricorns. So I was super interested in I was like, wow, look at this chart. Because but your Cancer lets me know that you have empathy, that you have feeling, that you have caretaking, and that the way that you take care of others is to educate them, is to empower them. And it isn't necessarily to cry for them or to get in the muck with them. It's to actually pull them forward. But it's there, and you have you've educated, you've carved, you've crafted yourself in such a way to channel that heart into productivity and not allowed it. And the reason why is because your ascendant's in Aries. So your ascendant's in Aries a fire sign, which you knew that too, right? And so your sun in Aries is the first of all signs, the least developed of all signs. But here's the thing about Aries: they're pioneers, they're leaders. They're also it's either one or this. It's all or nothing. It's black or white, left or right, all or nothing. There's not another choice. So for you, just like with me in certain ways, I see it as you either feel like a victim and nothing, and everything is not like you're just a victim of circumstance and nothing ever has a purpose or meaning, or every single thing that you have in your life has a purpose for a couple different reasons and how you got there, from sacred contracts of you choosing your path before you got here, to law of attraction, everything you manifest while you're here, to your astrological lessons you want to learn in this lifetime, which is your true node, which for you is Taurus. And I can tell you more about that later. Yeah, so your life lessons in this lifetime are Taurus. So you can look up True Node Taurus and find out more information about some of the positive traits, the negative traits, and what it is that your entire life has set you up to learn. Okay. What I found very interesting and completely on par with something I was feeling, but I didn't know where it sat for you, is your Mercury's in Sagittarius. So I have 3 planets in Sagittarius. Sagittarians are true seekers. They're educators. They love to learn. They love diversity. They see truth, but they're often very blunt in a truthful way, which is why you and I are not for everybody, because people with more water who want to they want to be gently stroked for a little while before you give them the information. And you and I are just like a boom, right? Because you're like, here's how it is, get out of pain and be done with this. Like, I don't need to stroke your hair for 20 minutes. They need that. You look at it, and I sometimes look at it as, can we just get to the truth so we can move on and you can feel better? Mm-hmm. But that for some people isn't what they need. They need the hug. They need to be held. They need to be validated on a much deeper level for a lot longer period of time. Yeah. There is an inherent within Sag and Capricorn in this, and Aries, there's an inherent confidence that you have. And again, not everybody has that. Some people second guess themselves. They're people pleasers. So they struggle with being accepted. They struggle with speaking their mind because they don't want to be rejected. So the courage that you had also comes with, and because I remember you saying in your video, I don't know why I'm like this. And I was like, oh, I'm doing her chart because I'm like, maybe there's a reason that you're like this. Let's see. I mean, there, of course, there's a reason why you're like this. And then your Venus is in Pisces and your Mars is in Pisces. So, which is interesting. So again, there's some more very deep feelings there, very in relationship. So that would not necessarily be about right now, except for your deep care and the Mars taking action. So you have a really great balance. I would say that your Taurus true node, your life lessons in this lifetime that is your, I'm not moving from this position, stick it to itness. Your Capricorn, no, I'm going to shoot for as high as I can get. I'm going to attain as much as I can. Your Cancer says, oh, I care about you, but I'm going to care about you in this way that I see more productive. Your Sagittarius just wants to like be a little sharp tongue. It's not sharp. It's truthful. It's truthful, but the Cancer of you in you cares how it lands on others. But then the other parts of you say, I care how it lands on you, but I can't keep silencing myself or doing something that goes against what I believe in order for me to make a bigger impact. And if that means I have to put myself out into the wolves, as I'm doing right now, as a white woman having a conversation about freaking racism. Okay. Like, I mean, except that I'm not having it by myself. Yeah. I was never going to have this conversation by myself because I wouldn't have. And I wanted to find someone in alignment with my belief systems that could speak something and people could hear in a way they would never hear from me. I don't take it personally. I get it. It's not about me. But for you, it's I'll send you some information on Taurus True Node. But the True Node really is, Jan Spiller wrote a book called Astrology of the Soul book. It's my number one book I tell people to get because it's so informative about your journey. The other things are energetic connections about how we have compassion, why we're different, why that person acted that way, why they said this, why don't they value, all those things get answered to me in astrology. And it's really made such a difference in the way that I've lived and how I feel and how I process emotions, how I use law of attraction, how I talk about it sometimes to other people to put it in words they'll hear better because they're not like me, and to be sensitive to that. Because when I started this law of attraction journey, some people would, when I said, you're the creator of your own reality. See, for you and I, we're like, yes. And for some people, they're like, shut up. Don't tell me that. I didn't do it because they think you're telling me that I've made a mistake. Yeah. You're telling me that I'm wrong and not good enough. And it's like, no, I'm not saying that at all. But that is how it gets interpreted. So I only had to learn that the hard way. Anyway, I thank you so much for being on today's show. I want to go back to your course. So NIAJAE.com/decadent, NIAJAE.com/decadent. For those of you listening on the podcast, I will put links in the show notes for both her course and her website. So please make sure to check the show notes, which is the more info tab on your podcast, so that you can see them. You don't have to remember it. But one more time, if you just want to go to her website, NIAJAE.com. Okay. And tell us your podcast one more time.
Abundance Hack.
Abundance Hack. Love it.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you teach law of attraction things.
Yeah, so much law of attraction. Yes.
Great. Abundance Hack podcast. Check that out. Thank you so much for your patience in knowing that and trusting me enough to say yes to today's interview on such short notice, and for the bravery and the courage that you have to speak your truth, knowing that it may not be everybody's, but at least to help the conversation I'm trying to have in sharing the love that I have, the concern, the commitment, and the dedication to changing what I can and what you can for others by educating them as to what works for us and hoping that they get something from it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And this is a powerful topic that I love that you invited me. So thank you so much.